Welcome back to The Breakfast here on Plus TV Africa. It's now time for Off the Press, where we have a review of the major stories making headlines across the country this morning. We'll say good morning to our guest. First, Mr. Chris Nwandu, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good to have you. All right, let's begin this morning with stories from the Nation newspapers. See what we can quickly share over there. It's going to be on your screen in a few seconds. Yes, it says, tough times await illegal arms bearers. Buhari vows. 774,000 jobs. Hiccups stall stipend payment. Police Igboho group clash in Lagos likely. And Emirates Airlines suspends flights to and from Nigeria. Many injured in Kwara APC leaders and supporters clash. Also on the Nation this morning, a man rapes his grandmother in Ondo State. Oyetola receives PDP defectors. That's also on the Nation. And you can also find here, banks negotiate or renegotiate loans from top borrowers. APC will face big challenge after Buhari, says Lawan. And Niger State Governor inaugurates security forces. Reprint your exam slips, JAMB tells candidates. Finally, on the Nation this morning, 18 billion naira grant for varsities take off.
Can't wait for us to analyze why a man would rape his grandmother on the Nation newspaper.
Well.
On the Daily Independent, subscribers vow to resist planned tax on airtime to sue federal government. Still on the Daily Independent, we can see a picture there. And it's a picture of a bonfire with youth on the road. And it says, angry youth sets bonfire along Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport during a protest tagged Buhari Must Go in Abuja on Monday. Since we don't have that paper, let's quickly go to the Daily Sun. We still see that story on the Daily Sun about members of Revolution Now protesting on Airport Road, Abuja yesterday morning. The headline on the Daily Sun reads, Buhari, Afenifere, Ohanaeze clash over appointments. My actions, policies, fair, inclusive, says President. And Groups and MBF says it's not true. Ohanaeze Abaribe Amogalu says nobody can push Igbo out of Nigeria. INEC targets 100 million voters for 2023 polls. Senate opposes plans to gag media, says attempt impossible. Pandemonium at Revolution Now protesters block Abuja Airport Road. JAMB, candidates in the listed CBT centers to get new exam dates. Anambra Guba, INEC rejects ABGA's delegates list. Insist on Congress conduct provisions compliance. Alleged sexual assault, Baba Ijesha to be arraigned June 24th. Also, hope to work with Nigeria to end insecurity. Applauds President's efforts in fight against insurgency. Also on the Daily Sun, Ijo to Buhari, give us competent, experienced, firm NDDC boss.
Now on the Nigerian Tribune, we can see there the big one from Neti. It says Nigeria made $400 billion from petroleum sector in 10 years. Court slams 82 billion naira damages against Mobil and NNPC over oil spillage. Court orders the federal government to pay Bayelsa $951 million. UAE makes U-turn, suspends flights from Nigeria. And also many injured as APC factions clash in Kwara. Federal government approves 18 billion naira for takeoff of varsities in Akwa Ibom, Jigawa, Osun, and Bauchi. And also PDP must not fall, or fail rather, in Anambra, says Uche Secondus. No section of Nigeria is excluded in my administration, President Buhari insists. And a court stalls release of 13-year-old who gave birth in prison. Army kills 20 Boko Haram and ISWAP terrorists in Benue Forest. Also this morning, customs to detain private aircraft that lack verification papers. We can also see here on the Twitter ban, reps begin probe today. Lai Mohammed, NGO, CSO to appear. And I think lastly, fish farmers lament loss of over 100 million naira to Ijebode flooding. Those are the stories on the Nigerian Tribune this morning.
All right, we can now get that Daily Independent story. The headline reads, subscribers vow to resist planned tax on airtime to sue federal government. The AFDB says $430 million Enugu-Cameroon highway to be ready before 2021 end. APGA risk disqualification from Anambra governorship poll. Oil spillage court awards 82 billion naira damages against Mobile NNPC. Confusion as Emirates resumes suspended flight services. Only Presidential Committee on COVID-19 can decide. That's according to the Director General of the NCAA. Obasanjo says Africa's major healthcare challenge is not a lack of funds. Buhari says, my appointments guided by equity, inclusiveness, and he added that those taking up arms against Nigerians will be dealt with. APC orders 3 million bunches of brooms for new members in Cross River. Verification, customs threaten to detain defaulting airplanes. And those are the stories we're looking at this morning.
All right. Good morning once again, Mr. Chris Nwandu. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So let's get straight into it. There's a couple of interesting ones. Which would you like to start from?
The headlines, I had the president saying that he's going to deal decisively with issue of banditry and all sorts of criminality caught my fancy. And for me, this is not the first time that we are hearing the president say that. He has said that several in the past. And we've continued to have issues of insecurity still on the rise. Not only is limited to the north, some part of the north, as it were in the past, but now it has spread to every part of the country, including the southeast, the south-south, southwest, and every other part of the country. So it is my belief that the president should do more with the assistance. And I think that the narrative will start changing a bit. The governors also should also be coming to the fray and make sure that their states are secured. But at times, don't forget what they say. Say they don't have control over the security architecture. When you talk about police, you talk about the army, you talk about other security agencies, they say that there is the prerogative of the president that they are not fully in charge. That also is, which is why some of us continue to say that there is a need for us to centralize the security architecture of this country, the issue of state policing and the rest of them. But for me, we need to do more. The rate at which we're having the level of insecurity across Nigeria is becoming so worrisome that practically there is no state in Nigeria now that doesn't have any form of insecurity. Don't forget also the number of the children that have been kidnapped. Some of them are still in the bush. They have not been rescued. That, to me, is the main issue.
All right. There's also something on The Nation this morning. It says the police and Sunday Igboho's group have a likely clash in Lagos. I believe that there's meant to be a rally. I'm not sure what date it is. But, how do you respond to that? Is there a possibility that there might be an actual clash? Is there things that must be done to avoid the police, of course, clashing with this group?
Yes. Yes. That rally has been scheduled for the 3rd of July in Lagos. That, to me, that is not the first. Don't forget, he had one in Oshun, he had in Ekiti. I think he has also had one in Ogun State. I can't remember now. And he said that on the 3rd of July that his group is going to storm Lagos. Whether there is going to be any level of clash or not, it also depends on the security agencies. To me, so far so good. I've not seen any kind of destruction of properties or whatever. The demonstrations, as I've seen so far, has been peaceful. I saw the mammoth crowd either in Ekiti or Ondo State. Even with the mammoth crowd, it was very, very peaceful. And that is what we have always been saying, that every Nigerian has a right. Freedom of speech, also protest and the rest of them, to stress the agitation. And that is why I also am one of the school of thought that you could see how that of Igboho is going. That was what IPOD started with. they started with just mere protest. They started getting violent when the military started shooting and killing their members. And that is why we are where we are today. That is why that gave rise to ESN and the rest of them. If the security agencies are able to make sure that they confine them, let them do their protests as they want to do, and go back to their homes and rest of them, as we have seen with that of Igbo, I don't think we would have gotten to the level of insecurity that we're having in the southeast now. But what did the military, what did they do when they were sending soldiers southeast to be killing the protesters? They were dehumanizing them, and so many of them lost their lives and the rest of them. And that in itself led to some of this, the problem we're having in the southeast. In as much as I am not supporting what is happening in the southeast, but I believe that if we have handled those situations relatively well, the way it is being handled in the southwest presently, we would have gotten to where we are to. So, but Buhari said the rally we hold in Lagos on the 3rd of July. So we're going to see how that's going to pan out.
So why do you think
already I'm making sure that everything goes on peacefully?
All right. So why do you think the reaction is different to these two groups? Is the argument that the IPOB had set up ESN and a militarized group a good enough argument as to why the army gets called in when the IPOB has their own rallies or makes their own moves?
IPOB didn't have ESN when they started. You need to go back to how they approached it. All they were doing is, if you see them with their flags, they go around marching through Aba, Umuahia, Enugu, and Owerri, and all parts of the southeast. There was never a time that they were resorting to arms or carrying arms or shooting people. And if anybody has that, they can show me. It was not until the army started confronting them. Yes, they will sound a bit militant in their utterances, but I didn't see them carrying arms or killing people. No, they weren't. But what the military did was to go after anywhere they see anybody carrying that IPOB flag, they shoot. They just shoot aside and kill them. Don't forget that Igbo has also gone to some part of Oyo State, Barakpa, where his people went to chase away Fulani herdsmen and the rest of them. We even had that one or two were killed and somebody was apprehended and handed over. I'm still saying that what we ought to have done is engagement. If they have been engaged properly the way it is being handled in the Southwest, I don't think we would have resorted to what we are having today. And that is why what is happening, because they resorted, were pushed, see them resorting to arms. And that is a dangerous. So I think that this would have been properly handled. Probably, possible that the federal government is looking at it from the point of the people who were where the agitation in the Southeast 1960s, in the 60s, resulted into the first civil war in Nigeria. But this is 2021. This is a different time entirely where people have a better way of engaging and engagement. I think that the federal government will touch on that and engage this guy instead of responding to what is happening now. And I think that's a still better way we can be able to do that.
Right.
So many people who have, I am of the school of thought that we should have handled that issue properly, just as the way we are handling the issue of Igbo and the other secessionist groups that are thinking of problem. And even for want of explanation, if we are able to do what we're supposed to do and giving every Nigerian the sense of belonging, I don't think we would have agitating for secession or leave the country or leave Nigeria and the rest of them. It is only a situation where people don't have a sense of belonging where they are, and that is what does all this kind of thing.
All right. Mr. Nwandu, I want us to turn to Anambra State, where the elections are built to come up soon this year. We know that this week, we're talking about ABGA, the APC, the PDP. They all have their party primaries coming up. But on the daily independent newspaper, there's a story here that says ABGA risk disqualification from the Anambra governorship elections. And that's because INEC had written to the Oye-led faction of ABGA in Anambra State, saying that they failed to notify INEC about their ward congresses within 21 days. How do you think the primaries would turn out in ABGA as also regarding the elections that are coming up later in November?
Our politicians don't learn from history. They don't learn from history. And if some of them are a bit short-sighted, we need to remind them of what happened in Zamfara and Rivers State in the last election. You know that Zamfara is predominantly an APC state. But what happened? Because of the intrigues that went on within the party during the primaries and rest of them, APC was now stopped from participating in that election. Even though when they participated in that one, it was nullified. And what was the cause? It was the primaries. That is why you see that PDP is in charge of Zamfara State today. The same thing happened in Rivers State. The Aneta faction and the other faction went deep. And at the end of it all, they were disqualified, practically disqualified, and PDP had a few days. The same thing is happening in Anambra State now. We have the ABGA, which is the current government in Anambra State, doesn't seem to put its house together. And they have a faction, one led by the governor, another faction. And INEC is telling them, put your house together. If you don't put your house together, then there's a possibility that you might not have a candidate for the forthcoming election. I hope they'll be able to read the handwriting on the wall and do the needful, or else the same thing that befell APC in Zamfara and Rivers State will rear its ugly head in the Anambra State, and after may be disqualified from the election.
All right, still talking about Anambra, we know that Ifeanyi Ubah has emerged as the governorship candidate of the Young People's Party, YPP. Do you think, the fact that he's young would give him an edge to give others a run for their money in the elections?
Well, I wouldn't think so. The dominant party in Anambra is, if you take it along this line, the ABGA, PDP, and probably APC. The YPP, I don't see any magic that Ifeanyi Ubah is going to play in that direction. But politics is something that is very undetermined, very that you cannot be able to predict. I remember in those days, those of us who are young in those our secondary school days, we remember what happened in Lagos State, between what was called then Agbala Jobi and Otedola. Most people don't understand how Otedola became the governor of Lagos State there during the Second Republic or so, because the SDP was the dominant party in Lagos State. But they had issues, and before you know it, at the end of it all, there was a voter apathy against SDP, and voted for NRC that had a Otedola who had an outside chance of becoming governor, and they voted for him. So the whole the state assembly was SDP. When it came to the governorship, voted against it, and that was how Governor Otedola was elected. He's the father of the current the billionaire Femi Otedola. So, but for Anambra State, I don't see the strong led by Ifeanyi Ubah. It's still going to be a straight fight between ABGA, PDP, and APC. All
right, and of course, there's always going to be conversations about how strong ABGA truly is in the southeast since Governor Obiano took over. But let's move away from Anambra State. Neti, it's on the Tribune this morning, says Nigeria made 400 billion naira from petroleum sector in 10 years. Quickly share your thoughts on this and how we have fared with these funds that we've really been able to make from oil.
Well, it's a paradox of sorts, because not ordinarily supposed to a blessing for us. So a large extent has become some kind of cause, quote and unquote. I know of several countries in the world that depend on oil, Saudi Arabia, and most of it in Asia depends on oil, and you can see what they are making from it. The proceeds of oil has transformed most of those countries into practically heaven. But is that the situation with us here? No. Practically everything we earn is either going into people's pockets or people are just investing the money and leaving everybody impoverished. You also see, even from the headlines today, that there was a court judgment yesterday that certain amounts to certain communities in Bayelsa State, whose community has been degraded by oil spillage and the rest of them. That is the irony of the situation in the country as we have it. The head and let the goat egg don't seem to benefit. If you go to the Niger Delta and state of most of these communities where this oil, we get this, you will shed tears, you will cry, and that's not supposed to be. Personally, I don't think that we'll be able to. We're talking of 100 billion, and about how many, about 10 years or thereabout, what do we have to show for it? See, now we are still borrowing money from China to prescribe some of our infrastructures. Our railway, our seaports, our roads, and the rest of them are still based on loans that we have collected from China, but we don't even know where we're going to pay back. That is the problem Nigeria presently. And then most often than I don't ask, what is the problem that of our leaders, of the followers? Nobody has seems to answer that question. And I don't think that we need to have a change of mentality where we have to hold our leaders accountable for every single kobo that they make. They have to make sure they remain accountable. And nothing is saying the obvious. Don't forget that most often than not, this money don't even find their way also in the part of the federal government. There are instances where NM has expended whatever they made without recourse to National Assembly, and you see most of the time, even National Assembly cry and say, how can you spend what you are making without a recourse to the National Assembly, who are supposed to have the power of appropriation? So that is the situation. It's nothing to cheering about.
All right, Mr. Nwandu, I think that's the much we can take at this time. We appreciate you coming on The Breakfast to analyze the papers with us.
Thank you very much, Robbie. Do have a nice day.
Morning to you. All right, we'll take a short break. When we come back, what happened on this day in history, the 22nd of June? I'm going back to the year 1996.
And I'm going all the way back to 1377.